All right, it's time to get you ready for the divisional round weekend. Charean Williams, Mike Florio with you on PFTPM. We've got several different categories of ways to look at this, and we're going to pick some players in response to each one. Let's begin with who has the most pressure of the players in these four games coming up over Saturday and Sunday, Charean.
Well, happy birthday, Drew Brees. Turned 42 today, Mike. And you alluded to this earlier, right? Tom Brady's older, but we don't get the feeling that Tom Brady's ready to retire yet. We do get the feeling that this might be Drew Brees' last year, whether he wants to retire or whether the Saints are ready to move on, whatever the case may be. Injuries over the last couple of years. This just, to me, seems like the end for Drew Brees. And this is his last postseason to add a Super Bowl ring. Of course, he only has the one. That came in 2009, and this has not been a good team in the postseason over the last 4 years. 49-15 in the regular season. They've gone 3-3 in the postseason. They lost to the Vikings at home in overtime last year. They lost to the Rams at home in overtime in 2018. Of course, I think we all agree they should have won that game based on an official decision late there in regulation, but it didn't happen. And now here they are, perhaps in Drew Brees' last chance, and a chance to end it like Peyton Manning ended it. And it does feel a lot like Peyton Manning's last year, Mike.
Yeah, it really does, and we'll see whether or not Brees can advance to the next round. It's hard for him. It's got to be excruciatingly difficult for him to walk away from the game after losing at home to Tom Brady, and he's done very well against Tom Brady. So I agree with you, a ton of pressure on Drew Brees this weekend. I think there's a ton of pressure on Jared Goff. Jared Goff, who some would say has kind of fallen out of favor with Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams. Maybe McVay would have preferred to go with John Wolford at quarterback this weekend. Maybe McVay sees Wolford as a guy who can better run the offense than Goff. Goff making $33.5 million a year under his current contract and playing out in the cold. Remember 2018 when the Rams had that Sunday night game in Chicago? Jared Goff was affected by the cold, and there were no elements. It was just cold. There was no wind or rain or snow or sleet. It was just cold. And it's going to be cold in Green Bay. And there won't be much wind, and there'll be no snow or sleet or freezing rain or anything like that. But we need to see him step up and help that Rams offense outscore whatever the Rams defense can hold the Packers offense to. It's going to be on Goff to engineer at least one more point. And if he fails badly in that spot, you're going to hear all offseason long, why did the Rams give him that much money? I still think they shouldn't have, and I said it from the get-go. And when can we get rid of him? And sorry, Rams fans, but you're stuck with him for at least a couple more years.
Yeah, Mike, since he became the starter in Week 11 of his rookie season, he's been like the quarterback. He's been their franchise guy, and it doesn't have that same feel now to me. It seems like there is a question there and a question within Sean McVay's mind of whether he is the guy.
Yeah, and we'll see if he can get himself back in McVay's good graces on Saturday, first game out of the gates in Divisional Round weekend. All right, what's the biggest surprise you're anticipating this weekend, Charean?
Well, Mike, I think the Browns are going to make it a competitive game with the Chiefs. Now, I'm not ready to say the Browns are going to win this game, but I do think it's going to be a competitive game. When you look at Patrick Mahomes, he hasn't played, Mike, since December 27th, and we haven't talked about this. And the last time he played, it was a blowout game. They beat the Falcons 17-14. December 13 was the last time he threw for over 300 yards. So he has not played well in a really long time. Now, is he just going to flip that switch and turn it back on? He certainly did that last year. We'll see if he can do it this year. But everybody seems to have forgotten, Mike, that it took 3 comebacks in the postseason last season to win the Super Bowl. Can they do that again? Can they avoid having to come back in each of the games, which is really hard to do?
And Patrick Mahomes, like any great player, looking for motivation wherever he can find it. Odell Beckham Jr. had a tweet recently suggesting that he believes the Browns will win the game. Patrick Mahomes clicked the like button on it. a source of potential drive added on top of the effort to become the first team to repeat as champions since the 2003-2004 Patriots. And I think they can keep it close, Charean, and I'm of the mindset, and Coach Dungy and I disagreed about this earlier this week, and he's Coach Dungy, so he automatically wins. He thinks the Browns need to get into a shootout. I think the Browns need to slow it down, run the ball, take the full play clock,
Agreed.
Tell Baker Mayfield you're game manager, not gunslinger, and reduce the number of possessions that the Chiefs have.
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I think they definitely have to run the ball well if they're going to have a chance in this game and keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' possession.
What I think is going to happen that will be a surprise, at least in hindsight, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to unleash Josh Allen as a runner. We saw it in the wild card round last year. He had 92 rushing yards, and he caught a touchdown pass, an 18-yarder. He had over 100 yards from scrimmage, other than as a quarterback. This past week, and people were like, oh, he really ran a lot. He only had 54 yards. He just doesn't run as much now because he can get it done with his arm. I think in a game where we're going to see plenty of Lamar Jackson running for the Ravens, this is going to be the thing that can maybe bust open the Ravens' defense. If Allen can run like Jackson runs, and I know the Ravens' defense will be better prepared for it because they see Jackson in practice, but just because you see him doesn't mean you can stop him. And I think we should expect to see Josh Allen run the ball more than he did last week, and I think he's going to have the green light anytime he sees an opening. If they're blanketing Stephon Diggs, if they're covering Cole Beasley, if they're taking away John Brown and Gabriel Davis, Josh Allen, tuck it and take off. And I think it will stun the Ravens' defense to see Josh Allen run it the way that he's capable of running it, Charean.
And they're also missing Zach Moss, Mike. So I think this could be another element to their running game is Josh Allen. And he did have 11 carries last week. The last 4 regular season games, he had 15 total carries. He had 11 last week. So I'm with you. I think they've decided that, hey, it's the postseason. Throw caution to the wind. Let Josh Allen run because he's very good at it.
Let's go to another topic. This officially is called the Under the Radar storyline. In deference to Chris Sims, I'll call it the swept under the radar storyline. That's one of the Simsisms he gave us this week. What is your swept under the radar storyline?
Well, I like the fact that Kevin Stefanski's coming back to call the plays. I mean, Alex Van Pelt was terrific last week. He didn't take the foot off the gas, Mike. You kept thinking Pittsburgh's getting back in this. They're scoring. You're going to see the Browns try to run this out. Nope. They said, we're going to throw the ball. We're going to match you touchdown for touchdown, and you can't come back against us. And Alex Van Pelt did not have Kevin Stefanski there to change his mind or anything else. It was his game. And he called a terrific game. And now Kevin Stefanski's coming back. His first playoff game as the head coach of the Browns, his first playoff game as a play caller. What's he going to do, and how much is he going to rely on Alex Van Pelt this week? They had total balance last week, 31 rushes and 34 passes.
It helps to get out to that easy 7-0 lead and to have it snowball into 28-0. But you're right. It's actually extra pressure on Kevin Stefanski because if they stink on Sunday afternoon – maybe people will say next time we're in the playoffs, we just need to lock you in the basement and go with someone else running the team that day. For me, the under-the-radar storyline is Antonio Brown back in the Superdome for the first time in 2 years. The last time we saw him there was his last game with the Steelers just a few days before he got upset that Juju Smith-Schuster was named the team MVP, and he threw the ball at Ben Roethlisberger and stormed off and never came back. He had 14 catches for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Saints in the Superdome. He's in game shape, game speed, ready to go. They've got a vast array of weapons. But when Mike Evans got hurt in Week 17, Antonio Brown really stepped up and had a huge day then. They didn't need him much last Saturday against Washington. I think they're going to need him on Sunday, and I think we're going to see a lot of Antonio Brown because he's back in a building, Charean, where he's made plenty of noise, at least the last time he played there.
Absolutely, Mike. And he hasn't had the greatest of postseason careers, 11 postseason games, 5 100-yard games, and 5 touchdowns. But I do think with Marshawn Lattimore on Mike Evans, we could see a lot of AB this week.
All right, next one, best head-to-head matchup this weekend. Charean, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to go with the obvious one, Mike, and it's the Packers' #1 scoring offense against the Rams' #1 scoring defense. It's happened 6 times before that the #1 scoring offense has met the #1 scoring defense, and the offenses, to no one's surprise, are 4-2. But then that's in the divisional round. Overall, since 1990, the defenses actually have a 4-3 lead in that. But I am intrigued by this. The Packers had the #1 scoring offense in 2014, and the Seahawks beat them 28-22. They were the #1 scoring defense that year. So this matchup just intrigues me about who's going to win it. Rams definitely need to do what they've been doing, which is score defensive touchdowns if they're going to have a chance.
And I look at 2 specific aspects of that matchup, Packers offense against Rams defense. Number 1, Jalen Ramsey on Davante Adams. Will Aaron Rodgers throw it even if Davante Adams isn't technically open? Will there be a crevice, a sliver, a crease through which he can get the ball to Adams, and will he catch it even if he's covered? Second, Aaron Jones. Contract year, postseason. He had 3 100-yard rushing games this year. Back in week 2 against the Lions, he had over 200 yards from scrimmage. It looked like he was going to make a huge statement to get paid a ton of money by somebody. It didn't happen the way that we thought it would. It can happen now. With 24 teams watching, this is his chance to get people to start scratching his name near the top of the list of available running backs in free agency. So I agree where you're coming from here. That offense versus that defense, what are they going to do to slow down Aaron Rodgers and company, and what can that supporting cast do to step up to help save the day? For me, the best head-to-head matchup is the Chiefs' pass rush against Baker Mayfield, because as long as Baker Mayfield isn't being rushed, isn't being hurried, isn't being pressured, he can execute the offense. Now, that's true for most quarterbacks, but it's especially true for Baker Mayfield because he's somewhere between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And he's not closer to either one. Maybe he's closer to Mahomes, but he's not as mobile as the Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes of the world. He can buy some time with his feet, but not enough. And if you it's almost like Kirk Cousins plus a little extra mobility, where you can get outside the pocket, but if someone is chasing you down, it's going to disrupt you. It didn't happen against the Steelers. They didn't have T.J. Watt in his face. I thought that would happen. To me, can the Chiefs get through the Browns' offensive line and get after Baker Mayfield, Charean? And if they can't, that's great news for the Browns.
And that was one of the key storylines from last week, Mike. Baker Mayfield took no sacks after taking 4 in each of the previous 2 games. That's huge for the Browns. They need to protect him. Joel Bitonio coming back is really going to help.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.